The cool night air wrapped around Jungkook and his niece Jonggi as they stepped out of the car. The streets were quieter at this late hour, but the occasional hum of passing car and the distant chatter from the city gave the evening a soft vibrancy. They had been out for some work, something Jungkook normally wouldn't involve his niece in, but tonight had been different. He couldn't refuse when she insisted on tagging along, her bubbly energy making it hard to say no. As they were about to reach to their home, Jonggi's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Uncle," she chirped, tugging at his sleeve. "Can we get ice cream, please?" Jungkook, still on edge from the business he had just finished, looked down at her and felt his heart soften. No matter what kind of life he lived, his niece was his world, and despite the dangers surrounding his position in the mafia, he wanted to give her some sense of normalcy. "Alright," Jungkook finally agreed, a rare smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "Let's get some ice cream." Jonggi beamed up at him and practically bounced out of the car once it stopped. They walked toward the small ice cream stand across the street. The little lights of the shop glimmered in the distance, giving off a warm glow in the night. As they approached, Jungkook's phone burst in his pocket. He glanced at the screen and saw it was one of his associates calling about unfinished business. "I will be in a minute," he said to Jonggi, distracted by the call. "Uncle, I will go get the ice cream. You come after your call," Jonggi said, excitement filling her voice. She didn't wait for his reply and twirled happily, dancing her way toward the stand. Jungkook chuckled, watching her skip ahead. She was always so full of joy, a light in his dark world. He lifted his phone to his ear, speaking in low tones, discussing the matters of the night. As he spoke, he kept an eye on Jonggi, watching her hop up to the counter to order her ice cream. She received her cone, her face lighting up as she took her first bite. Jungkook, still on the phone, couldn't help but smile at the sight. It was moments like this that made him want to protect her from everything, moments where he could almost forget the world he was a part of. But just as he turned around to continue his conversation, his world shifted. He heard a sharp scream, his blood ran cold, and he spun back toward the direction of the sound, his heart racing. Jonggi was gone. In the place where she had been happily eating her ice cream moments before, a black van was speeding off. His eyes widened as he processed the scene. Someone in mask had grabbed her, shoved her into the vehicle, and now she was being taken away. "Jonggi," he yelled, his voice cracking with panic. He dropped the phone without a second thought, sprinting toward the retreating van, but it was already too far. The car roared away into the darkness, and all Jungkook could hear was the faint echo of his niece's terrified screams. For a moment, his mind went blank. How could he have let this happen? His enemies, they had found a way to get to him, to use the one person he cared about most, and now they had her. At one place, the kidnappers had stopped the car. You had always preferred walking home after a long day, as Wayan turned down a narrow alley, hoping to cut through and get home faster. A sudden sound of a silent faint cry. You froze in place, heart pounding as you strained to listen. There it was again, clearer this time, a child's voice, small and scared. Without thinking, you followed the sound, your face quickening as you navigated through the winding streets. Rounding a corner, your breath hitched at the sight before you. A little girl no older than 6 or 7 was being dragged out from a black van by a tall, imposing man. Her eyes were wide with terror, her tiny hands desperately clutching at anything to escape his grip from her. You know you were no match for him physically, but you couldn't stand by and do nothing. Hey, let her go, you shouted. The man's head snapped toward you, his grip on the girl tightening. He sized you up, a smirk curling at the corner of his lips as if amused by your interference. Without a word, he shoved the girl into the van again, her terrified eyes locking onto yours, pleading for help. Panic surged through your veins, but you forced yourself to move. You sprinted toward the van. The man was fast, already climbing into the driver's seat. But you managed to reach the door just as he started the engine. Yanking it open, you grabbed the girl's arm and pulled her out with all your strength. She stumbled into your arms, tears streaming down her cheeks. Run, go find help, you urged her, pushing her toward the exit of the alley. The girl hesitated for a moment, glancing back at you, but your urgent plea snapped her into action. She turned and started running from there, looking back at you. A relief washed over you, then the man was out of the van now, his eyes dark and full of fury. He pulled a knife from his jacket. You shouldn't have done that, he growled, taking slow, deliberate steps towards you. There was no turning back now. Before the man could reach you, the screech of tires filled the air. A sleek black car sped into the alley, coming to a sudden stop. The passenger door swung open and out stepped a man. The girl is safe now behind him, ran to his side, clutching his hand. Uncle Jungkook, she cried, her voice trembling, and now his dark, lethal gaze was locked on you. Jungkook's eyes narrowed as he took in the sight of the van, the knife in the kidnapper's hand, and you standing there. To him, it had looked like you were part of the kidnapping. After looking at Jungkook, the kidnapper runs away from there, leaving you and the van. His jaw clenched, his fist curling into a tight ball at his sides, and he came near you. You, he said with his dangerous voice, what did you think you were doing with my niece? You opened your mouth to explain, but before you could get a word out, Jungkook was already moving. In the blink of an eye, he had you pinned against the van, his hand fisted in your shirt. His face was inches from yours, his eyes burning with fury. You could feel the raw strength behind his grip, the lethal intent in his gaze. You thought you could get away with this? Taking her, threatening my family? No, you gasped, struggling to free yourself. It wasn't me, I was trying to help her. Jungkook's grip tightened, his breath hot against your skin. Please, you managed to choke out. I was trying to save her. The real kidnapper, he got away. Jungkook's eyes flickered, but his grip didn't loosen. He was still glaring at you. Behind him, his knees tugged at his arm, her voice small and shaky. Uncle, she whispered, tears still glistening in her eyes. She's not kidnapper. She saved me. She pulled me away from the bad man. Jungkook froze, his knees words hung in air, cutting through the rage clouding his mind. Slowly he turned to look at her, then back at you. His grip on your shirt loosened, and he stepped back. What? Yes, I heard her scream. I saw that man trying to take her. I couldn't just walk away. I pulled her out of the van before he could drive off. Jungkook stared at you, his expression unreadable. Silence stretched between you both. And the man. That man, he ran when you showed up. You replied, pointing to the end of the alley where the kidnapper had vanished into the night. I didn't have time to stop him. Jungkook's jaw tightened, frustration flashing in his eyes. He ran a hand through his dark hair, his mind clearly working through the situation. After what felt like an eternity, he glanced at his knees, then back at you. Thank you so much. She is safe. What if anything had happened to her? I can't even imagine. I understand, you said quietly. I'm just glad she's alright. Jungkook looked at you for a long moment, then with a curt nod, he turned to his knees, scooping her up into his arms as she buried her face into his shoulder, finally feeling safe. As Jungkook turned to leave with his knees in his arms, a strange look crossed his face. Something in his expression softened just for a moment as he glanced back at you. Thank you. You saved her. I owe you. You blinked, taken aback by the shift in his tone. Just minutes ago, you were sure he was going to hurt you. Now there was something else in his eyes, that is gratitude. You are welcome. I couldn't just stand by and do nothing. He smiled and he glanced down at his knees, still clinging to his side, her tiny fingers gripping his jacket tightly. Let's go home, he murmured to her before looking back at you. You should head home too. This city is dangerous at night. Back home, Jungkook sat in the darkened living room, deep in thought. The room was dimly lit by the soft glow of a nearby lamp, casting shadows across the walls. He clenched his fist, replaying the scene in his head. How could he have let his guard down like that? It was a careless mistake, one that could have cost him everything. He would never forgive himself if something happened to her. But then, as his mind spiraled deeper into the possibility of revenge, another thought crept in you. The brave, confident stranger who had stepped in without hesitation. Just as your memories overtook his thoughts, the soft sound of footsteps echoed in the room. Jongi appeared at the doorway, clutching her stuffed toy. Her eyes a little puffy from the night's event, but still bright. Jungkook smiled, pushing his dark thoughts aside, and motioned for her to come to him. She ran over and he lifted her onto his lap, her small hands wrapping around his neck. Are you okay, Jongi? She nodded, resting her head against his chest. I'm okay, uncle. I was scared, but that aunt saved me. She's so brave, right? Jungkook smiled, stroking her head softly. Yes, she is. She didn't know you, but she stepped in to help. That takes a lot of courage. Jongi lifted her head. She didn't even know who I was. She just saw those bad men and she didn't run away, uncle. She could have been hurt, but she helped me instead. She's so strong and brave. Jungkook looked down at Jongi, feeling a strange warmth in his chest as he listened to her. Not many people would do what she did. Most people would have walked away, too scared to act. Jongi nodded. Exactly, that's why she's so special. She put her fear aside to save me. Do you think she's like a hero? Jungkook chuckled, his smile widening. In a way, yes. She acted like one tonight. Jongi broke the silence with a sudden burst of excitement. Uncle, what if we invite her to our house? Jungkook blinked, slightly surprised. Invite her? Yes, I want to see her again and I want to thank her properly. We should invite her to our house for lunch one day, don't you think? Jungkook hesitated. He wasn't used to inviting strangers into his world, let alone into his home. Trust was something he had always kept guarded, especially in his line of work. But looking at Jongi's hopeful face, he found himself softening. Maybe it wouldn't be such a bad idea. After all, you saved his niece, and Jungkook wasn't the type of ignore a debt. Alright, he finally said, nodding. We can invite her for lunch one day. Jongi's face lighted up with excitement and she threw her arms around his neck. Thank you, uncle. I can't wait to see her again.